Hi, welcome to Beyond the Money podcast. This is Jackie Campbell, certified financial planner and certified public accountant of Campbell Company Wealth Advisors and CPAs. And I've got a guest with me today, and I'm really excited to have the conversation. But it's probably a topic that many people don't like to have very often, but it's coping with dementia. And we have as a special guest, Debbie Selsavage, and you are one of the founders of Coping with Dementia.
Thank you for having me here.
I'm so glad, just to have the conversation with you and, just awareness and your experience, talking about it. And it sounds like we're both very much proactive with wanting to do the prior planning before there is a crisis or a need. So tell me a little bit about why your backstory, I guess, and some of your experiences and why you came up with your business.
Well, about 2000, my husband Albert and I moved to Citrus County, and it was for the bike trail. And he was an avid cyclist, but he had a fall, had a concussion and on his left side. And that was our journey 4 years into our marriage, that he now had dementia. I had no idea what to do, didn't know what the resources were. Did the best that I could to keep him home for about 5.5 years. But there was a symptom that came up that happens to about 70% of our folks as we start to wander outside our home. So I was lucky enough that our sheriff's department brought him back 3 times. But the third time they were kind of curious about what I was going to do to keep him safe. So we started placement. That didn't work so well. The whole journey outside of the home didn't work so well until what I didn't know was 4 months before he passed away, someone decided to take really good care of him in Spring Hill. So after his passing in 2010, I got into the industry without knowing, became an administrator, and knew that there was a way that we could do this differently. So I met my new partner in 2012. Ed was his name. He has since passed 2 years ago. But we started the company to really educate people and then really do the best that we can to find resources, because we found that that's mostly what happens to people. They don't know what they don't know. So they just continue on going and not really feeling that they have support, not really feeling that how am I going to make it, because after a journey of dementia's diagnosis, finding a diagnosis could be up to 7 years. But actually, a person could live 8 to 12 after that diagnosis. So it really is very draining on our care partners. So we created the company, and we've been doing this since 2014, and we do that with workshops. I do what's called the ABC of Dementia in about 5 different counties. I do one-on-one counseling or guidance to help people figure out where they have to go. I'm not an attorney, so we need to get you there. I'm not a CPA or a wealth management type of person to figure out what their assets are. So we have to get people to them. And it's really been exciting because through the conference that we've had for 13 years, we've really developed quite a pile of resources for people, which it looks at right now in April. I'll have probably close to 40 resources in this conference where people will have in one place to find out different things that are going on in the community. And Citrus County is doing really much better than others as I go around to other counties.
Oh, wow. That is great news. And I love that, because if you're right, if somebody hasn't gone through that personal experience, right, with a loved one, a family member, neighbor, you really don't know what the next best steps are. And it's hard. It's hard to come to terms that this is a path that you're going to be going down and potentially be the caregiver, which is a whole nother experience that is, they call it the caregiver syndrome.
Oh, yeah, burnout, everything.
Yeah. And even, beyond being that caregiver. I know that there's some recovery process there. But you're right. The money is just part of it.
The money is a really big part of it. And I think that's why they sometimes don't want to look at things they don't know that much about, because they know that it's going to be too expensive for them, whatever that is. And I know that you've probably heard that many times. And Florida does have some creative ways to help folks that they don't have to and we all know that sometimes people aren't good at being a caregiver.
Right.
And just like you might see the reversal of roles. And this person now that you're having to deal with is not the person that has always done the finances.
Right.
So reversal of roles in this journey of dementia is very difficult. It takes a lot of time for them to figure it out when, look at how putting gas in the car changed. Most women supposedly never put gas in the car. Their husbands always did all the work on that. But now they're having to resume those roles that in every aspect of their life, because our persons living with dementia can't make the regular good judgments that they used to make.
Right, and you're spot on with that. I call it the CFO of the family. So there's typically one. It's the bookkeeper, paying.
We have our roles.
Keeping track of everything, and they love math and love that responsibility. And you typically see the other spouse, and it could be male or female, and they don't want anything to do with it. No, I trust you. But then when the time comes that they need to get involved, they just don't have that clear direction.
Correct. And it's very frustrating for them.
Yes.
And it's very exhausting. So what I have been involved with is really creating a lot of partnerships with my resources. So if I can't figure it out, I got somebody else that I can go to. I don't really assume that I know everything, but I'm really sure that I can find someone that will be able to help them. For instance, just knowing that they don't have to do it alone. Knowing that they should be thinking of this sooner rather than later, so that if things do change, we can bring them through the steps much easier, not just pile everything on them. And we have I think COVID was good and bad. COVID taught us how to do things remotely.
It did.
So we can teach people that if they can't drive, because there's a lot of spouses that have that role of driving more than the other one. Mm-hmm. And if that person that was the primary driver has now got a form of dementia, I don't want to take their license away, but I want to educate them on why it's important to think about replacing the need for the vehicle, not subtracting, but substituting the need, so that we don't become hyper-focused about whatever that role is that they want.
Right.
You mentioned dignity before we got on. That is a huge, huge problem, because what happens if families start to get involved, they start taking things away from the couple. And then the couple loses their purpose and their will to be here. Mm-hmm. So we have to learn how to balance it and support them. Not just take away, but support.
Yeah, and that's the way we kind of see it. Like as children, we want to respect our parents' wishes and, respect, who they are. They're still the parents no matter how old they get and how old we get. But at the same time, we can be really bossy when we try to tell our parents what to do and not do. The reason I know that's because my mom has told me I'm a little bossy sometimes.
But she raised you to be that way, so now it really it doesn't pay forward that they like it that way.
That's right. But I love that you're collaborating with so many resources that are out there. Not everyone has long-term care.
No.
Not everyone has a plan. Mm-hmm. Not everyone has what I call a My When file. And that's WHEN for when the time comes that you're either not able to make decisions for yourself, or it could be from sickness, surgery, hospitalization. Maybe you're even out of the country, but making sure that you're kind of having that CFO, like how to run my life, my financial life if I'm not here, and do I have long-term care insurance or do I not? Or, where are my estate documents? Where are they located? Because we hide things from ourselves sometimes, and other people, all those private important documents. So just having that roadmap, that key, that checklist, that's something that I love pulling together. And it's not that I'm going to be the one helping them execute all those things, but it's just something that I kind of learned through some hard-won wisdom over 30 years, seeing clients, seeing what worked well and what didn't, when family members had to come from out of town and kind of go through every single piece of paper in someone's home, not having a trusted financial advisor or professional that they worked with. Or
even having legal documents.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm a real big fan of that, even though I'm not an attorney. It's just from hard-won wisdom and with my own dad going through some of those hard-learned lessons along the way too. So big fan of that. What is some of the greatest I guess, wisdom that you've seen, like if your personal experience and or how you've helped people since you've started this company?
Well, sometimes it's not something that I had done, but I learned from. So by knowing that my husband, I was 20 years younger than he was, so I was still working. Knowing that when he left the house once, he was going to continue to leave. To have the deputies come and say, he is no longer safe to be home. I should have known that, but I wasn't aware of the fact that this person would continue to do that. But he lost track of time. He didn't know how long I was gone. When he did pass, I did not have legal documents. We did together, but when he passed, I was like, I might have to update these now that he's gone. Or we did have long-term care insurance. So I've had my long-term care insurance when I was in my 40s. So it's been more than 25 years. So it was really something that you really do, as you said earlier. Once you've had that experience, I didn't have my funeral arrangements, but I thought it was creepy at 40. But when my husband died and they opened up all the information that he had done, it was a gift. So I do now have that, but I come across a lot of people that do not have their legal documents, let alone any kind of financial planning. They just have a notion that they have to spend all their money before that they can do anything. And that's such a disappointment to have that. It's a disappointment for me to hear people talk about what they assume an Alzheimer's or dementia person will be like. We are not educated even medically about it, as we talked before. We're just now coming out with an FDA-approved, under research, blood test that will tell us that we will have Alzheimer's, which is good for research, because then we can now start having people there. It will be less expensive to do a blood test than a PET scan.
Right.
So there's lots of things that they're doing that is better, but we're still really far behind because the baby boomers have now come to that age where they might really need some of these tools that we're talking about. Financial planning, long-term care. What is that plan when I do get sick? Who has the power to help me out? And because we're in Florida, a lot of our residents have come here to get away from kids. It's warmer.
Right, it's true.
And now the kids are just calling. They're not coming quite as much. And they really need, if you have any idea that one of your parents or someone that you know has a form of dementia, you really have to make a visit once in a while.
Yeah.
Because that is much more enlightening than just having a phone call. Because I can fake it on a phone call. Right. But I can't fake it when you get here.
Right. And I see that often, it's like, even from my experience, I'm like, when's the last time your kids have been here, and it's hard. It's a really fine line.
It very much is.
Yeah. For confidentiality and, but having those conversations, like you said, before it's an emotional decision, before it's a crisis. Prior planning pays is one of my greatest mantras, right? The 3 Ps, whether it's finances or the emotional things. And what a gift. You're right. If things like a prepaid burial and all those decisions are all spelled out, you don't have to try to figure out, like, I want to honor their wishes and maybe overspend, or, did they want this or did they want that? It just really takes all of the blended family conversations out.
Which is a very difficult situation.
Sure.
The blended families. Different families have different opinions. And this poor care person that's stuck in the middle of this, trying to make the right decision for the person. Right. But it also has to be the right decision for the care partners. As you mentioned way early, was the burnout before we came on. I see that a lot. And a lot of times at that point, our care partners can't make good, sound decisions either.
Right.
So now we have 2 people that are struggling. And that's sometimes very, very difficult. And sometimes you have to come in and say, what do you need? What do you want? Does it have to be this or that? We have to start giving them some options. And more than likely, somebody might tell me, I just can't do this anymore. I said, well, then let's see what we can do for both of you.
Right.
So we have to look at the package of both of them. The extended family and the children, that's great. But these two people here are day to day doing this, and it can be very, very difficult for them.
Yes.
So for me, meeting with people, doing the workshops, looking at the symptoms, the characteristics, our medical system likes to give medication. And sometimes that's not always the best for our folks. So I'm not a doctor or a nurse either, but I can get them to people, or like you said, give them a plan to ask. So
Right.
they feel kind of empowered that they're still making those decisions, but they kind of have a roadmap from somebody else
Right.
on what to ask and then where to go.
Right.
So I can give them several different types of options. And we have Shands, which is not that far from us, but it can be very difficult to get to for a person that isn't used to driving. But Shands is one of our 16 memory disorder clinics. So those are the people that you can get a concrete answer from. It may be that they can't do anything anymore, but you've at least exhausted everything and done what you possibly can, and let's move forward.
I love that you're taking some of your hard-won wisdom and you're pulling all this together for other people. I mean, what a great way. And you said the key word, empower someone, because they feel like they cannot make one more decision. They're just exhausted. But whether it's a mental health counselor that has to get involved, a financial advisor, a financial planner, definitely a Medicare planning attorney. I mean, those are big things that I think are missed. People listen to their neighbors, they listen to the aunt, the uncle, the cousin, and who knows a little bit about something, and they're like, oh, you got to get everything out of your name, get it in your name from your parents, and that can actually create bigger problems.
You can't hand somebody a rack card of numbers. So, for instance, one of the conferences that I had last year in Leesburg I partner with some of the research companies, and this one was Charter Research in the Villages, and I partner with Renstar Medical Research in Ocala. And she came to me and she was just crying because I just can't, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. And I said, what are you looking for? Well, I'm supposed to have this and that. And I could take her right to the table to one of the resources. They made an appointment and settled what they needed to settle. And then I didn't hear from her again. And that's fine. But I have things at my fingertips that now is in one place when we do our conference. And we can get that taken care of so that when they're leaving, they have tools.
And like military veterans, right? If they served during wartime, not necessarily war zone. I mean, there's extra benefits that potentially you or your spouse could be getting for home health care.
Home health and others, yeah.
Right. And it's just knowing, who to turn to, who to actually go to.
And those are people that will be at the conference on April 9th. There'll be all of our county services, transportation, VA services, volunteer services. There will be people from Elder Options in every dynamic of their departments, because Elder Options is a very large organization that's hard to maneuver. You need to narrow down what they are looking for, but we can get personal numbers now. We'll have people from Shands. Most of their neurology department and even brain banks that will now preserve the brain so that we can see what's going on, or maybe you'll get a definitive diagnosis at that point. So it's just really dynamic to be able to, what are some of the solutions to the problems that I'm seeing? So I love that more than anything, is to say I have a problem here, and this is what we always focus on, is what you don't have or what you're not doing or what's happening. I want to know what happened before that.
Right.
Because if we don't know what happened before that, we're going to keep doing the same thing over and over again. So if someone is listening and saying you don't need those people, you can download all these documents online, that's really not the best thing to do. If we're planning, we can include the person with dementia along with it. So every single thing that I do, if it's an in-person ABC of dementia, if it's on my online support groups, the conferences, the person with dementia is always welcome. And that always surprises them. In fact, I have a better rapport with the people with dementia that are living with that because they're working on how things make me feel. And if I make them feel welcome, comfortable, and inclusive, it's totally transforms everything.
I love that. I really love it. When is your conference that's coming up in April?
April 9th. We start our speaker at 10, but we usually open the doors so that they have time to go through it. My sponsors we keep it free for everybody because usually the resources that are there are a lot of nonprofits, support groups, nonprofits, sheriff's department, things like that. So we keep it free with my sponsors. We feed them lunch, light breakfast. We have speakers. And the Key Training Center has allowed us again to be at the Chet Cole Enrichment Center.
Great.
So everything is free for them. And it's really something that my partner and I, Ed, started the year before we opened up the company. And we've been on average outgrowing the churches that we've been doing them in. So now we've got the Chet Cole. And last year when we were there, we probably had more than 350 people there.
Wow, that's amazing.
We feel really proud of doing that because when they leave, they have tools. We have people that will help them. Elder Options is one of the speakers. My keynote speaker is someone that I've worked with for a few years, but he runs program development in a assisted living that also has taken it a step further and does research. How colors play into it, how lights play into things, how music. So there's a lot of things that we can use. And in fact, the person that finally did decide to take care of Albert in a different way, because we had been kicked out of 3 assisted livings and Baker acted through the system, she did just something that was very old-fashioned, and it was simple hug therapy.
Aww.
And he never had another behavior. So I really am pushing to make sure that we don't label our people, because when we label them, it really just narrows down how we're going to interact with them and how they're going to get care.
Right.
So keeping that open and learning about more resources here, because I have that ability to do that. Our care partners don't.
I love it. And you're, even though you've had emotional connection and a why for all that you've been doing with coping with dementia, you couldn't control so much of that. But this is something that you can help somebody else control the things that you can. And sometimes it's just deciding and planning the best you can and navigating through it all.
And it takes a long time for education. But for right now, it's really becoming sometimes a little overwhelming because you still have so many people that are very unprepared and they do not have the knowledge and about what's happening. They think that their person is doing it on purpose, but in actuality, they're having a very difficult time. They're not trying to give you a hard time. They are truly having a hard time.
Just like repeating yourself, right? Like my kids, I always said, I'm not going to go past twice, I'm not getting to the 3, but it's harder when somebody starts having some memory challenges. You do have to repeat yourself or you'll hear the same things. And it requires an exorbitant amount of patience and
What's
discipline.
amazing though is during the course of this last several years, I've done a lot of certifications. So I'm a certified dementia practitioner. I am an administrator. But for the last 12 years, I've had a certification in 2 types of sections of what's called the positive approach to care. It's by Teepa Snow. A lot of people don't know her, but a lot of people do. But it's a whole different approach on looking at something, how we approach that person, understanding that our body language is very important, where we position ourselves, looking at their eyes, making sure that we get their attention so that we're on the same page. It is absolutely remarkable the difference of what we can contribute to a very successful interaction. So even when I do one-on-one meetings with them, their caregivers say, should I have? I said, well, why not have him here? Because this is what we're discussing. I don't want them to be paranoid that we're talking about them and their problems because they still have a lot of dignity to know that something's changed. I want them to understand that I'm here to help them both.
I love that. And if there's maybe two things that you kind of want to leave us with, and I definitely want more information about the conference coming up. Is there a website or a phone number?
There is. My number is 352-422-3663. I do have a monthly column for the last 12 years in the paper, so it's Coping with Dementia. My website is www.coping.today. But you can usually find me. Someone might know who I am. I'm trying to get out there as much as I can so that things don't fall through the cracks. So if there is a crisis and the deputies are called, they will usually call me to keep them at the home. We do crisis intervention training with the deputies, so they get dementia training. We're starting to work with the fire rescue. They have behavioral units. So some of our whole organizations are changing the dynamic of what they're looking at, or making that mental illness or those types of people that are living with dementia that may be a little bit more of a struggle. They're making that a part of their wheelhouse now. Yeah. And they're now gaining resources. So Citrus County has resources of respite, so we can drop that person off. It's the only licensed day program we have. We have memory cafes that the YMCA has 3 times a month. The library has once a month. We have online support groups. We have in-person support groups. So we're trying here in Citrus County really hard to find those resources to maintain them as long as possible.
Yeah.
And it's working.
I love it. What a great thing. And talk about beyond the money. This is a really big important part of it. If there's anything that someone needs help, or maybe they know someone who needs to come to this conference, thank you so much for sharing that and bringing all these resources and collaborating all these different professions together for the good of those people that we love and care about the most.
And we're seeing more and more, even in the, how do I want to put it, stars, actors, professional, people that are now, their families are now bringing it out more to the forefront for the good, because now we can associate Lewy body with Bruce Willis.
Right.
Or frontotemporal, we can associate Robin Williams with Lewy body. And so families, it doesn't matter. We also have 85 famous Americans that we have a photo exhibit that we usually put out. And it's people that you may not ever have thought about, but they were dealing with dementia. Charlton Heston, Charles Bronson, Marilyn Monroe, or not Marilyn Monroe, it was Marilyn, oh gosh, there's so many of them. Who's the one, Golden Girls, the little lady, Mama, there's so many of these folks here that now they say, well, I didn't know. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have any boundaries, whether you're rich or poor, whether you're smart or not.
That's so true.
Religion, nothing. It is out there, and my partner and I started the company to primarily be that resource for them.
Well, I think that is just an amazing thing, and thank you so much for your time, Debbie, and I'm excited to hear more about your conference.
Sure.
And the success of that. So Debbie Selsavage with Coping with Dementia. And just one last thought I want to leave with, because we talked about it before we started the podcast, long-term care. A lot of people think they can't afford long-term care.
Correct.
But there are hybrid strategies that are available now that maybe your loved ones might even have that you don't even realize. Correct. So those are really, really important things to make sure, if you have some of those strategies, to make sure that you're having that conversation with your trusted financial professional. And that's why we do what we do, right. Is pulling all that 360-degree
Correct.
Retirement plan, retirement roadmap all together. And it's not just about your income and your investments, but it's really part of the legacy and the health and long-term care as well.
And it's, for most of us that are dealing with that, I have heard some people have very good success with those hybrids because they didn't know that was there.
Right.
And that's where we say, I don't know everything, but you need to get to people that do, because they're the ones that are going to be more educated. Those types of laws change a whole lot, even in elder law. It changes the law. But what we need to secure is knowing that hopefully the living caregiver, the primary caregiver, is going to outlive our person. We want them to have the finances to be able to maintain, just as simple as a home and a vehicle, maintain their life. So that's why planning and getting to the right people is so important sooner rather than later.
So, Debbie, we're going to have the information below on the upcoming conference and how to follow your columns and to reach out for a collaboration or a reference
Sure.
Along the way if somebody needs this. And thank you so much for your time. And beyond the money, we have this radio show and this podcast exactly for this type of reason, coping with dementia.